Good afternoon. From the KUOW newsroom, this is Seattle Now. I'm Paige Browning. As we look towards an end to the heat wave tonight, here are today's top stories. It's Thursday, July 17th. Starting with major news close to home for us. The U.S. House is expected to vote tonight or tomorrow to take back funding from local public radio stations like KUOW. How are local members of Congress voting? Scott Greenstone has those details.
Republican Michael Baumgartner of Spokane told KUOW last month he and his family listened to NPR.
I like listening to NPR in a world of 20% budget deficits, and we have to look at where we can save some money.
Spokane Public Radio gets about 10% of its funding from the Federal Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which Baumgartner's spokesperson said he'll vote to defund. CPB funding makes up about 5% of KUOW's budget as well. Democrats on the west side of the state say the money that goes to stations like Spokane's is critical. They're sometimes the only ones covering local communities whose newspapers have disappeared. Scott Greenstone, KUOW News.
This news may have changed by the time you hear this. Check KUOW.org/funding for the latest news and more information about how to support KUOW. Speaking of cuts, queer youth who call the 988 crisis hotline no longer have the option of a counselor who specializes in their care. But Washington's health department is trying to make sure alternative avenues for help are available, Eilish O'Neill reports.
LGBTQ youth are at much higher risk of suicide. The CDC found in 2024 that 1 in 4 of them attempted suicide in the previous year. That's why the feds established a crisis line just for that community. Lonnie Peterson manages 988 for Washington's health department.
The goal of that line was really to make sure that there was an affirming space for folks from that community where they could talk to a trained counselor that could help address the unique challenges faced by that community.
Last year in Washington state, people reached out to this specialized line 15,000 times. The feds say they ended this option, quote, to focus on serving all help seekers. LGBTQ youth in crisis can still get help by calling the main 988 line or by reaching out to the Trevor Project, the LGBT National Hotline, the Trans Lifeline, and the Rainbow Youth Project. Eilish O'Neill, KUOW News.
Another top story we're watching today, 7 large wildfires are burning in Washington state and 13 smaller ones, according to today's incident reports. The state's Department of Natural Resources says more than 5,000 firefighters are out on the lines. Most of the fires are believed to be human-caused, including the 500-acre Bear Gulch fire that's still threatening campgrounds in Olympic National Forest. School's out for summer. I know. But there's no break in the search for a new school superintendent in Seattle. Seattle's school board voted this week to extend their hiring search and add more meetings for public engagement. The board had planned to hire someone before the fall, but decided the community needed more time to be heard. Erin McDougall co-chairs the advocacy group All Together for Seattle Schools.
We definitely think that prioritizing quality over speed is crucial at a time when our district absolutely needs to have the strongest, most top-notch candidates from across the country.
McDougall's group has urged the district to do a full nationwide search rather than just hiring from within. Acting Superintendent Fred Podesta has been on the job since May. In other news about jobs for hire, the National Weather Service in Spokane has an unprecedented number of vacancies following federal cuts earlier this year. Northwest Public Broadcasting's Rachel Sun reports.
Staff lists on the National Weather Service's website show at least 6 vacancies at the Spokane Regional Office. The Spokane office serves eastern Washington and northern Idaho. In addition to 24/7 forecasting, regional offices coordinate safety warnings for people in areas affected by extreme weather.
They have been quietly saving lives behind the scenes, for decades.
That's Chris Crocker, chief meteorologist at KXLY in Spokane. She says she's never seen that many vacancies at that office. In an email, a National Weather Service spokesperson says the organization plans to advertise, quote, mission-critical field positions to stabilize operations across the country. I'm Rachel Sun reporting.
On our immigration beat, immigrant advocacy groups are criticizing King County for not providing enough information about deportation flights from the airport it owns and operates. The county provides a log of flights coming and going from Boeing Field. La Resistencia wants details about the number of passengers and if county services are provided for each flight. Since 2023, the county's maintained a video stream and observation room for volunteers to watch detainees being boarded. Stan Shakuma is with partner organization Suru for Solidarity. He says pilots have begun maneuvering to avoid the cameras.
There have been several instances where the plane parked with its door away from the camera, so we were left with trying to count feet that we could see going underneath the belly of the plane.
Shakuma says an additional camera to provide a better view has been offline for nearly a month and a half. In an email to public radio, a county spokesperson says issues with that camera have been resolved and they've requested passenger info from ICE. In politics about politics, a Congress member from Washington is defending her vote in support of a Republican-led effort to overhaul elections. Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez was among 4 Democrats to vote for the SAVE Act in April. That bill calls for people to prove their citizenship when they register to vote. Critics say the proposed change will discourage even American citizens from registering, since many don't have the necessary documents like a passport. But Gluesenkamp-Perez says the bill addresses that issue.
You can sign a statement that certifies that you are a U.S. citizen if you're not able to produce the documentary proof. So a lot of the debate about who and how is mitigated through the attestation clause portion of that bill.
The Southwest Washington Democrat concedes that voter fraud is relatively rare, but suggested that something should be done to increase voting security. The measure is currently before the U.S. Senate. 2 more stories of note before our feature story tonight. Amazon.com's climate-harming emissions are going up, despite the company's climate pledge. GeekWire reports Amazon revealed this week that its carbon emissions grew by 6% last year, after dropping slightly in the 2 preceding years. However, as it rapidly built up more artificial intelligence and data centers, its carbon emissions shot up to 68 million metric tons in 2024. And a happy note for some science-minded bread bakers. Federal funding has been restored for the Washington State University Bread Lab. The lab posted on social media today that the grant it's on through the USDA is reinstated. Federal funding cuts hit the nationally recognized bread lab in April, threatening its staffing and operations. USDA grants allow the lab to study new varieties of grains. Now, our feature story today. Artificial intelligence is squeezing into even the most remote corners of Washington state. And that's changing the kinds of jobs you find in rural communities. Joshua McNichols recently visited a lumber mill to learn more.
Morton is a sleepy logging town near Mount Rainier. But inside the Hampton lumber mill, it's a blur of activity. Thousands of wood studs fly by on a conveyor belt. They pass through a futuristic-looking machine. Its belly is full of bright light and cameras.
So like AI does, it's got to learn, right? So the more it sees, the more it learns, the better it does.
Aaron Poquette manages this mill. He points to a worker hunched over a laptop. He's training an AI system to assess the quality of each 2x4.
We used to have a force of people sitting all in line, grading lumber manually, looking at every single board, making a decision.
Very labor-intensive. Lumber mill jobs are changing. There's still physical labor, sweeping up sawdust, pulling out scraps of wood, but increasingly these jobs are about managing robots.
And this is all newer equipment, a lot of it's robotic, right? Very, very, very precise and very repetitive.
What's driving this transformation is competition from highly automated sawmills. Austin Himes teaches forestry at Washington State University. He calls these new higher tech mills super mills.
These mills can handle, orders of magnitude greater volume and require relatively fewer people to operate.
The Hampton Mill is doing fine, according to its owner. But small mills like this are closing every year. As a smaller mill, the Hampton Mill does have disadvantages. But as long as it continues to thrive, it'll keep training its employees on new technology. That means rising salaries for people in small towns like Morton, Washington. Joshua McNichols, KUOW News.
Hear more about lumber towns on the latest episode of Booming. Find it on the KUOW app or wherever you listen to podcasts. Next time on Seattle Now, it's Casual Friday. Our panel discusses the controversy behind Hot Rat Summer, the title of a mosaic on a city-owned building at Cal Anderson Park.
I mean, I've heard people say, maybe they should have, asked the city. It's who would they ask? What
does that defeat the purpose of Hot Rat Summer? Hot Rat Summer sanctioned?
Hot Rat Summer asks for forgiveness, not permission. Yeah, absolutely.
Hear that Friday morning. And that's all for today from the KUOW Newsroom in Seattle. Our producer is Brooklyn Jamerson Flowers, and I'm Paige Browning. Seattle Now and KUOW are members of the NPR network. See ya.